Good morning and welcome to the May 13th, 2026 meeting of the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. It is 9:30 a.m. For the record, I'm Chairwoman Brooke Popp and I'm joined by my colleagues, Commissioner Gonzalez and Commissioner Miller, our General Counsel, Mary Smith, and our Public Interest Counsel, David Timberger. For each item that argument or discussion is allowed, we'll inform parties and the public of time limits for their discussion. Registration closed at 9:30, but if you'd like to address the commission on an item, please either visit the registration table if you're here in person, or if you're on the webinar, email agenda@tceq.texas.gov with your name, affiliation, and the item you'd wish to comment on. We will do our absolute best to accommodate the request. For those making presentations, please wait to begin your presentation until I or Mary have asked you to begin speaking, and please make sure your line is unmuted before proceeding. This is a hard agenda meeting, not because of the agenda, but I think one of the hardest parts about working for the state and working for an agency is you grow to view your colleagues as family. So when you lose one, it's extra hard. Today, I'd like to recognize the loss of our beloved team member, Mike Egan. He passed away last week. He was our lead editor and was the primary staff who wrote both the strategic plan, which is due to the ledge very soon, and the biennial reports. He also made sure that anything I put out in public didn't look stupid or say anything controversial. He worked across the agency with staff from every office to ensure consistency in our communication in the public. He was also a singer and songwriter, which is so creative, and he loved to talk about music. He had a much better taste in music than I did, we'll just say that. Today, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little emotional. Today we're going to honor Mike and say thank you for his public service and everything he did for this agency. And we have a much happier but still sad note. Ron Olson. Ron, stand up, please. You don't like attention. It is not your thing. But Ron, our OGC institution, who has earned a well-deserved honor by being selected as the next commission counsel at the PUC. I am so proud of you. I am so pissed at the PUC right now. He's worked for the state in some capacity for at least 2 decades. First at the ledge, you can sit down. I know you don't like all this attention, but the last 19 years at this agency. Again, when you work for the state and agencies, your colleagues become your family. He's worked in General Counsel's office since 2016. Of course, he's smart and hardworking. He always tells me the real deal, so I know what's truly going on. He cuts no corners. He does the job. He is consistent. And he's also a really, really great human. And this is a big loss for us at OGC, but I am so excited for you to move on to the PUC. They have great commissioners there as well. Not as great as us, but great. And you have 5. Is it 5 delights? So we're really proud of you, and I'm sure that Katarina and Tanya would like to say something.
Believe me, I had some words with some of the commissioners as well at the PUC, so I get the sentiment, but I'm happy for you, and I'm glad, and I want all our employees to know that even though, we value you and we want you here, we also want you to grow in your careers, and when you have a good opportunity, it's great for you to take that. And so, and of course, you're always welcome back. And then as to Mike, just to our employees, remember that we have an employee assistance program. So if you are having some grief or anything else, or want to talk to someone about anything else, that's also a good route to use. So.
That's great. Thank you for bringing that up. Tanya?
First off, to Mike's friends and family, just know that our thoughts and prayers are with you. Ron, I am so excited for you, and I agree with Commissioner Gonzalez. Professional growth is a wonderful, wonderful thing, and you're going into an agency that I have worked for and worked against when I was public counsel, but it's a great agency. You have great commissioners over there. You will be missed, and it's been a pleasure to know you and to work with you.
And you can always come back.
We are very, very happy for you, and I'm sure we will see you around in the commission stratosphere. But Mary, do you have anything you want to say to your Ron?
You're just going to put me on the spot, but you will be missed. Ron was somebody who worked quietly without fanfare. He was always really willing to take on any assignment and worked really hard and always did an amazing job. I know you'll be greatly missed among your colleagues, so just echo, we'll absolutely take you back, so don't leave. Okay. Thanks for all you've done for the office.
As I said, it was going to be a sad but happy agenda meeting. Our agenda's great, though. So let's move on to item 1.
Item 1 is the consideration of the application by Las Lomas Municipal Utility District 4B of Kaufman County for the major amendment of TIPD's permit number WQ00148-03001. The parties have been notified that the commissioners will not take oral argument but may ask questions. Those who have signed in will be noted for the record.
All right, item 1. Las Lomas Municipal Utility District 4B of Kaufman County has applied for a major amendment to its TIPD's permit to authorize an increase in the discharge of treated domestic wastewater from a daily average flow not to exceed 500,000 gallons per day to a daily average flow not to exceed 950,000 gallons per day. In reviewing the sole hearing request in accordance with the affected person requirements in state statute and 30 Texas Administrative Code section 55.203C, I would find that State Senator Bob Hall does not qualify as an affected person in this matter based on his request for a hearing to address constituent concerns. Therefore, I would deny Senator Bob Hall's hearing request, adopt the ED's response to comments, and issue the permit amendment. Katarina, Tanya?
I'm in agreement.
I'm in agreement.
I move that we, 1, deny all hearing requests, 2, adopt the executive director's response to comment, and 3, issue the permit amendment to Las Lomas Municipal Utility District 4B of Kaufman County as recommended by our executive director. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion passes.
Item 2 is the consideration of the application by Freeport LNG Development LP for renewal of air quality permit number 100114. The parties have been notified that the commissioners will not take oral argument but may ask questions. Those who have signed in will be noted for the record.
Thank you. Item 2, before us we have an application for renewal of Freeport LNG Development's air quality permit for its liquefaction plant. The commission received 1 hearing request jointly filed by Better Brazoria, Clean Air and Clean Water, Texas Campaign for the Environment, and Sierra Club. Typically, when we consider hearing requests for an air quality permit applications, the commission considers a 2-step analysis that analyzes whether the requestor is an affected person and the personal justiciable issues that were raised. However, for an air quality permit renewal application, the commission must first consider whether there is a right to a hearing. Under Texas Health and Safety Code, Section 382.056, the commission may not hold a contested case hearing on a renewal application that would not result in an increase in allowable emissions and would not result in the emission of an air contaminant not previously admitted. The only exception to that prohibition is if the commission determines that the application involves a facility for which the applicant's compliance history is classified as unsatisfactory. In this matter, the renewal application will not result in an increase in emissions or result in a new air contaminant not previously admitted. The applicant's compliance classification is satisfactory. So I agree with the ED and OPIC that Freeport LNG development application satisfies the statutory and regulatory requirements to demonstrate that there is no right to hearing in this matter. Therefore, we are compelled by law to deny the hearing request. If we agree that the hearing request should be denied, then I would issue a renewal permit to the applicant and adopt the ED's response to comments. Commissioner Gonzalez, Commissioner Miller?
I agree for those reasons. There's not going to be an increase in allowable emissions, and also their compliance history is satisfactory, so there's no reason, I think, to grant the hearing.
Commissioner Miller?
I agree that the law does not allow us to grant a hearing in this case.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I move that we find there is no right to hearing on this application pursuant to Texas Health and Safety Code, Section 382.056, that we deny all hearing requests, that we issue the renewal of air quality permit number 100114 to Freeport LNG Development LP as recommended by the Executive Director, and that we adopt the Executive Director's response to comments.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Let's move on to item 3. Let everyone shuffle.
Item number 3 is the consideration of the application by Freeport LNG Development LP for renewal of air quality permit number 104840. The parties have been notified that the commissioners will not take oral argument but may ask questions, and those who have signed in will be noted for the record.
All right, item 3. Before us, we have an application for renewal of Freeport LNG's development's air quality permit for its pre-treatment facility. Like the previous item, the commission received the same hearing request jointly filed by Better Brazoria, Clean Air and Clean Water, Texas Campaign for the Environment, and the Sierra Club for this matter. As I mentioned in the last item, for air quality permit renewal applications, the commission must first consider whether there is a right to a hearing. Based on Texas Health and Safety Code, Section 382.056, I agree with the ED and OPIC that Freeport LNG Development's application satisfies the statutory and regulatory requirements to demonstrate that there is no right to a hearing in this matter. The renewal application will not result in an increase in emissions or result in a new air contaminant not previously admitted, and the applicant's compliance history classification is satisfactory. So we are compelled to deny the request for hearing. If we agree that the request for hearing should be denied, then I would issue the renewal permit and adopt the ED's response to comment. Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes, I found this one just like the previous one, and I would also agree to denying the hearing requests and issuing the permit.
Thank you. Commissioner Miller?
In agreement.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I move that we find that there is no right to a hearing on this application pursuant to Texas Health and Safety Code, Section 382.056, deny all hearing requests, issue the renewal of air quality permit number 104840 to Freeport LNG Development LP as recommended by the Executive Director, and adopt the Executive Director's response to comments.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Thank y'all very much. Eli, how's the baby? How old now?
She's crawling around a lot.
Oh my gosh, she's 1 already. I feel like it was yesterday when I put you on the spot and asked about her.
Item number 4 is the consideration of the application by 183-258 Liberty Hill LLC for new TIPD's permit number WQ00165170001. The parties have been notified that the commissioners will not take oral argument but may ask questions, and those who have signed in will be noted for the record.
All right, item 4. Before us, we have an application for a new TIPD's permit seeking authorization for a discharge of up to 500,000 gallons per day. The commission received 2 hearing requests during the comment period. When considering hearing requests for these types of applications, the commission considers a 2-step analysis. First, we must determine whether a hearing requestor is an affected person. Second, we determine whether an affected person raised issues in their hearing requests that are referable to SOA. I'll begin with my thoughts on affectedness. To be considered an affected person, a requester must explain how they will be affected by the application in a way that is not common to members of the general public and identify concerns within the commission's jurisdiction. The hearing requester must also identify these concerns during the comment period. I believe that Holmes 29 LLC has shown that it may be personally affected by this application in a manner not common to the general public. The proposed discharge route will flow through Holmes 29 LLC's property, starting less than a mile from the proposed outfall. Holmes 29 LLC raised several relevant and material concerns, including concerns about water quality, impacts to human health, siting requirements, and characterizations of the discharge route. I find that Holmes 29 LLC has demonstrated its current property interests and its ability to develop its property that may be impacted by the proposed discharge flowing through it. I agree with the ED and OPIC that Sean Height has not demonstrated a personal justiciable interest because his property is located over 2 miles away from the proposed outfall, and his property is not located in the discharge route. With that, I'd like to hear from my fellow commissioners.
I'm in agreement.
I'm in agreement.
Let's move to the issues and hearing duration. Holmes 29 LLC raised relevant and material issues regarding water quality, including concerns with human health and anti-degradation, regionalization, siting requirements, accuracy and completeness of the application, notice, characterization of the discharge route, adequacy of sewage sludge management requirements, and monitoring and reporting requirements. These issues are within our jurisdiction, so I would recommend that we send them to SOA. Finally, I'd recommend a 180-day hearing duration and a concurrent referral to the Commission's Alternative Dispute Resolution Program. Colleagues?
I agree.
In agreement.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I move that we grant the hearing request of Holmes 29 LLC, deny the hearing request of Sean Height, refer the application to SOA for a contested case hearing on the following issues: whether the drought permit is protective of water quality, including the protection of human health, and the existing uses of the receiving waters in accordance with applicable regulations, including the Texas Surface Water Quality Standards and TCEQ's anti-degradation policy. Whether the commission should deny or alter the terms and conditions of the drought permit based on the general policy to promote regional or area-wide systems under Texas Water Code, Section 26.081. Whether the drought permit contains adequate siting requirements in accordance with applicable regulations in 30 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 309. Whether the application is accurate and substantially complete. Whether the applicant substantially complied with applicable notice requirements. Whether the drought permit adequately identifies and properly characterizes the functioning of the discharge route. Whether the drought permit contains adequate sewage sludge management requirements in accordance with applicable regulations in 30 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 312. And whether the drought permit contains adequate monitoring and reporting requirements to demonstrate compliance with its material terms. Refer the matter to the Commission's Alternative Dispute Resolution Program to run concurrently with SOA's scheduling process, and set a maximum hearing duration of 180 days from the date of the preliminary hearing until the proposal for decision is issued.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. The motion passes. Thank y'all.
Item number 5 is the consideration of the application by Citgo Refining and Chemicals Company, LP, for the amendment of air quality permit number 9604A. The parties have been notified that the commissioners will not take oral argument but may ask questions, and those who have signed in will be noted for the record.
All right, item 5 is the application to amend one of Citgo's air quality permits to authorize existing emissions of hydrogen cyanide and ammonia from the refinery's fluid catalytic cracking unit number 2. That's a mouthful. The ED has determined that this amendment application is substantially similar to the previous application that was withdrawn during a contested case hearing at SOA, requiring us to use procedural rules in place at the time the first application was filed in 2015. Therefore, the Commission must consider HB 801 two-step analysis for analyzing the effectiveness of two groups and whether they raise relevant and material issues. I'd like to stop and hear what my colleagues have to say about effectiveness. This was a complicated one.
It was a complicated one, and I'm purely basing my thoughts on this on the record and the procedural history, and not thinking of this in terms of a policy that should go forward necessarily in the future. So I would grant the hearing request of both Citizens Alliance and Hillcrest Residents Association. Citizens Alliance has identified multiple members in close proximity to the mission point who would be affected differently than the general public. And I agree with the ED and OPIC that its hearing request should be carried forward only in this instance. However, I do not think it's a good practice to have policies that go beyond our statutes and rules. I think it's important to reevaluate informal practices to ensure that we remain faithful to the authority delegated by the legislature. Regarding Hillcrest Residents Association, I agree with OPIC that the hearing request was timely filed and identified affected members in accordance with our rules, and so thus I would grant both requests and refer the matter to SOA for hearing.
Thank you. It was complicated. Commissioner Miller.
First off, I want to agree with Commissioner Gonzalez in that I think it's important that we follow our rules and don't have policies beyond those. And I think this brought to light the use of us coming forward with hearing requests from a previous application. In this instance, it was an application filed first in 2015, and that hearing request was brought forward. But given that the ED addressed this filing in its response to comments and told the parties that they were going to bring this hearing request forward, I too would grant the hearing requests of both Citizens Alliance for Fairness and Progress and Hillcrest Residents Association. I want to also note that I would grant the hearing requests based on Daniel Pena and Lamont Taylor for both organizations, and based on Marcus Knox for the Hillcrest Residents Association. I'm pointing that out because there was some individuals in the first hearing request that no longer own property, and I do not believe that we should grant hearing requests based on people who do not own property any longer in the area. So I want to make that point, but given the members' locations relative to the point of air emissions generated by the facility, I find that their health and use and enjoyment of property could be affected by the facility's operations in a way not common to the general public, and would grant both hearing requests.
Thank you. Both of you raised very, very good points, and I agree with Commissioner Gonzalez and Commissioner Miller that this is a policy that we will not be pushing forward, but it is 2026, so we have a different set of rules that we get to abide by. I also find that the two groups together raise 6 relevant and material issues, generally addressing concerns raised regarding whether the draft permit is protective of health, whether the draft permit will prevent nuisance conditions from air contaminants, whether the draft permit requires appropriate emissions control and BACT, whether the draft permit contains adequate monitoring and reporting requirements to demonstrate compliance, whether the emissions and background conditions were properly considered in drafting the proposed permit, and whether the facility's compliance history raises any issues with the applicant's ability to comply with the terms of the draft permit. Again, colleagues, thoughts?
I'm in agreement.
I'm in agreement.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I move that we grant the hearing request of Citizens Alliance for Fairness and Progress in Corpus Christi and Hillcrest Residents Association. I would refer the application to SOA for a contested case hearing on the following issues: whether the draft permit contains adequate conditions to protect the health and safety of the group members and their families in the immediate vicinity of the facility, whether operations under the draft permit's terms will cause nuisance conditions from air contaminants affecting group members' properties during facility operations in violation of 30 Texas Administrative Code 101.4, whether the draft permit requires the facility to utilize the appropriate emission control technology and best available control technology-based emission standards, whether the draft permit contains adequate monitoring and reporting requirements to demonstrate compliance with its material terms, whether the application properly calculated and addressed potential emission sources, emission rates, and background concentrations to establish appropriate conditions in the draft permit, and whether the applicant's compliance history for the previous 5 years raises issues regarding the applicant's ability to comply with the material terms of the permit that warrant altering the terms of the draft permit. I would specify that the maximum hearing duration should be 180 days after the date of the preliminary hearing to the issuance of the proposal for decision, and refer the matter to the Commission's Alternative Dispute Resolution Program to run concurrently with SOA hearing scheduling efforts.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. The motion passes. Sorry if I'm so croaky today, y'all. The allergies got me.
Item number 6 is the consideration of the application by Park Environmental Equipment LLC for the renewal with no changes of air quality permit number 79400, registration under the standard permit for concrete batch plants. The parties have been notified that the commissioners will not take oral argument but may ask questions, and those who have signed in will be noted for the record.
All right, item 6. Before us, we have an application by Park Environmental Equipment LLC for renewal of its registration to operate under air quality standard permit for concrete batch plants number 79400 to authorize the continued operation of its concrete batch plant in Harris County. The commission received timely hearing requests from Kimberly Garcia. Under Texas Health and Safety Code, Section 382056G and O, the commission may not hold a hearing on a renewal that would not result in an increase in allowable emissions, would not result in the emission of an air contaminant not previously admitted, unless the applicant has a compliance history rating of unsatisfactory. Because this permit renewal will not result in an increase in allowable emissions or the emission of air contaminants not previously admitted, and because the applicant has an unclassified compliance history rating, I do not believe that there is a right to a hearing in this matter. Thus, I would recommend that we deny the hearing request, issue the permit, and adopt the ED's response to comments. Katerina?
I agree.
I agree.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I move that we find that there's no right to a hearing on this application pursuant to Texas Health and Safety Code, Section 382.056, that we deny all hearing requests, that we issue the renewal of air quality permit number 79400 to Park Environmental Equipment LLC as recommended by the Executive Director, and that we adopt the Executive Director's response to comments.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion passes.
Item number 7 is the consideration of the application by Sienna Shipyards LLC for the renewal of air quality permit number 109892. The parties have been notified that the commissioners will not take oral argument but may ask questions.
All right. Item 7. This matter concerns the renewal of an air permit that authorizes the continued operation of a marine vessel maintenance facility located in Orange County. The commission received one timely combined comment and hearing request from Ms. Della Hutchison. Similar to items 2, 3, and 6, the commission may not hold a hearing on a renewal that would not result in an increase of allowable emissions and would not result in the emission of an air contaminant not previously admitted unless the applicant has a compliance history rating of unsatisfactory. Since this permit renewal would not result in an increase of allowable emissions and would not result in the emissions of an air contaminant not previously admitted, and since the applicant has a satisfactory compliance history rating, there is no right to a hearing in this matter. Therefore, I would deny all hearing requests, adopt the ED's response to comment, and issue the permit renewal. Colleagues?
I agree.
I agree.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I move that we find that there is no right to a hearing on this application pursuant to Texas Health and Safety Code 382.056, deny all hearing requests, issue the renewal of air quality permit number 109892 to Sienna Shipyards LLC as recommended by the executive director, and adopt the executive director's response to comments.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. All right, we are moving on.
Item number 8 is the consideration of an administrative order for the City View Road groundwater plume proposed state Superfund site. The ED is the moving party and should present the matter, followed by any interested persons, but currently no one is signed in to address the commission. Finally, OPIC, the ED may reserve time for rebuttal. OGC recommends limiting parties to 5 minutes for presentations. And with that, we'll invite the ED to begin.
Good morning, Chairwoman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. On behalf of the Executive Director, I am Pepe Tang with the Litigation Division. With me are Scott Sedemeyer and Chrissy Livingston of the Remediation Division. This item is an administrative order to select remedial action for the City View Road groundwater plume located near the City of Midland in Midland County. The site is in an approximately 107-acre groundwater contamination plume from an unknown source. Specifically, the plume contains tetrachloroethylene, commonly known as PCE, in excess of levels protective for groundwater ingestion. No soil contamination has been identified in relation to the plume. Since the plume was first discovered and reported to TCEQ in 2003, TCEQ has made numerous attempts to identify the source of the groundwater contamination plume. Despite these efforts, no source could be identified. At this time, the plume is stable. As part of the state Superfund process, TCEQ performed a remedial investigation and a removal action to address certain effects of the plume pursuant to Chapter 361 of the Texas Health and Safety Code and applicable TCEQ rules. Now, with this administrative order, and after a public meeting, notice, and opportunity to comment, and in accordance with Texas Risk Reduction Program rules, the Executive Director proposes the selection of a remedy establishing a plume management zone. This remedy will prevent exposure to the contaminated groundwater through institutional controls and includes long-term data collection and analysis to monitor the plume and ensure its stability. The proposed remedy is more completely detailed in the remedy selection document included as Attachment C of the order before you. In accordance with statute, the proposed remedy is the lowest cost alternative that is technologically feasible, reliable, and will effectively mitigate and minimize damage to and provides adequate protection of the public health and safety in the environment, taking into consideration the relative immediacy of the threats. The Executive Director respectfully requests that the Commission issue this administrative order pursuant to Chapter 361. We're available to answer any questions that you may have and would like to save the remainder of our time for rebuttal if necessary.
Thank you very much. Mary, no one is signed in on this item?
That's correct.
All right, we will hear from OPIC.
Good morning, Chairwoman Pomp, Commissioner Gonzalez, Commissioner Miller, General Counsel Smith, and Executive Directors, Attorney, and staff. My name is Eli Martinez. I am Senior Attorney with the Office of Public Interest Counsel, for the record. The area addressed by this final administrative order is an approximately 107-acre PCE contaminated groundwater plume located about 2 miles east of downtown Midland. The plume is stable and not expanding. TCEQ has fully delineated it, and there are no chemicals of concern in soil, surface water, or sediment. There is no identified ecological risk, and residents in the area already receive public water service after a prior removal action. The selected remedy is a groundwater alternative GW4, a plume management zone. This approach relies on institutional controls to prevent exposure to the groundwater, combined with periodic monitoring to confirm the plume remains stable. The estimated cost is about $750,000, and no potentially responsible parties have been identified despite an exhaustive search. TCEQ provided full public notice by publishing in the Texas Register on December 5th, 2025, and in the Midland Reporter Telegram. A public meeting was held on January 15th, 2026, and only one comment was received during the meeting, in which a property owner asked that their property, which is located outside and up gradient of the plume, be included in the remedy. After review, staff determined no change was warranted. There were no written comments and no opposition to the proposed remedy or order. After reviewing the administrative record and the commission efforts to engage the public, OPIC has no objection to approval of the final administrative order. The PMZ remedy is protective of public health and the environment, cost-effective, and fully consistent with the TRRP and state SuperFund requirements for this stable orphan site. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. ED, do you have any comments? No rebuttal? No. Thank you. This proposed Superfund site has a long history. The groundwater contamination was first discovered more than 20 years ago. Since that time, the ED staff has worked to investigate the extent of the groundwater contamination, provided notice to the public, held public meetings, and identified an appropriate remedial action on the site. I agree that the ED's selection of the plume management zone as a remedial action for this site is appropriate, and the proposed order meets all the statutory requirements. I'd also like to say that the level of detail and analysis that goes into the development of a Superfund order is not lost on me. And I very much appreciate the staff's 20 years of efforts on this site and order to get to this point. With that, I propose we adopt the ED's order, but I will stop and see what my fellow commissioners think.
I agree. I just also want to thank the staff for their work on this order and ensuring that appropriate remediation efforts are being made to make sure that our Texans are safe. Thank you.
Well said. Commissioner Miller.
I'm in agreement with both of you.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I move that we adopt the ED's proposed order concerning the City View Road groundwater plume state Superfund site.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, that takes us to our enforcement docket, which are items 9 through 42, and the Executive Director's staff is here to present these matters.
Good morning, Chairwoman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. For the record, my name is Megan Hamilton of the Enforcement Division, and with me today are Amy Sedemeyer, also of the Enforcement Division, and Gitanjali Yadav of the Litigation Division, representing the Executive Director. Pending before you are items 9 through 42. The total assessed administrative penalties are $1,832,330, with $164,301 deferred, $743,810 applied towards supplemental environmental projects, and $924,219 to the general revenue. We respectfully request approval of these items and are available to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions?
No?
Nope. Do we have anyone signed in on this item?
We have 2 people signed in on item 9, but the chief clerk has informed me that they are virtual and they are not seeing them online, however. And I'm confirming once again that they are currently not online. So, and I will also note that on items 18, 9, 28, 29, and 42, that we have people signed in and available to answer questions if the commission has any questions on those items.
Any questions? OPIC?
Good morning, Chairwoman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Executive Directors, Attorneys, and staff. For the record, I'm Michael McCarthy on behalf of OPIC. OPIC has reviewed each of these enforcement items, and we support adoption of all orders presented by ED staff. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Well, thanks, OC and OLS staff, for preparing all these orders for our consideration today. I've reviewed them, and I'm ready to move forward. I'd also like to commend these ladies for tackling the backlog. That strike force is working. Good job, Christine, Amy, and Megan, and Gitanjali. So thank you very much. Colleagues,
I'm in agreement.
In agreement.
do I have a motion?
I move that we adopt items 9 through 42 as recommended today by the executive director.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. We will move on to the enforcement report. Number 43.
That's item 43, consideration of the monthly enforcement report, and the executive director's staff is here to
Good morning, Chairwoman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. My name is Amy Sedemeyer of the Enforcement Division, and with me are Megan Hamilton of the Enforcement Division and Gitanjali Yadav of the Litigation Division. We are here to present the monthly enforcement report for fiscal year 2026 through March. There were 910 effective administrative orders issued, and of those, 139 contain supplemental environmental projects. These orders assessed a total of $15,792,628 with a payable amount of $8,960,655.73. $4,582,220 are to be paid towards supplemental environmental projects. 9,899 notices of violation have been issued through either our field offices or review of self-reported data in our central office, and 759 enforcement action referrals have been received. There are 2,731 pending administrative orders. 161 cases are pending at the Attorney General's office for representation in district court, and 8 judgments have been issued. 1,723 cases are being tracked for compliance. There are currently 1,230 cases that are on the backlog. Additionally, per TCEQ internal guidelines, a case is considered backlog if one of the following is true. The initial proposed order is not mailed within 180 days from referral acceptance date, or the order becomes effective more than 550 days after the referral acceptance date. Once an order is mailed, it is no longer considered backlog unless it does not become effective or otherwise resolved within 550 days from referral acceptance. Thank you, and we're available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. I appreciate the distinction on how you classify a backlog. And again, that strike force is working. Y'all are doing a great job. Colleagues?
Am I correct? That's 25 off the backlog this time? Is it?
So the number, I believe it was a little over 1,300 last month. The total number, because of the on and off all the time, I don't know right off the top of my head, but we've had over 300 cases roll off of backlog just through setting cases effective since the beginning of the fiscal year.
Great. Good job. Thank you.
Commissioner Miller?
Thank you for your work.
OPIC?
Oh, first, we do have someone signed in to
Oh, we do. All right.
speak on this item. Would you like to hear them first, or do you want to
Yes.
go first? Okay. We have Catherine Guerra on this item. I believe she's virtual.
Ms. Guerra, are you online?
Can you hear me?
We sure can.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Catherine Gadla with Public Citizens Texas Office. I serve as Director of the TCEQ Watchdog Campaign and Agency Accountability and Community Capacity Building Initiative. We now have 3 months of enforcement backlog data that we've received in response to our request under the Texas Public Information Act. Last month, the Commission highlighted the reduction of 130 backlogged enforcement cases, and we want to acknowledge the staff's effort while being transparent with the public. What we've learned since then is that removing these cases from the backlog list does not necessarily mean that TCEQ has resolved them. In fact, many of those 130 cases mentioned last month are still open, ongoing enforcement cases. Several of the cases were non-suited. TCEQ withdrew the violation and waived any penalties against those polluters. We've reviewed the data from March, which is the report that you're receiving today, and there are a few issues. Approximately 70 enforcement cases were removed from the March backlog data set, and of those, it appears only 2 cases were actually resolved and closed with a signed agreed order. 10 cases have signed agreed orders and are still listed active, which is appropriate if the ordering provisions are being tracked. But more than 40 of those 70 cases have no signed agreed order and remain active, and 12 of those cases have no signed agreed order but now somehow have been closed by the agency. There's no agreed order, ED order, or non-suit, and we would like to know how those cases were resolved and when the agreed orders, which indicate how the violations were resolved, will be made public. The TCEQ refused to respond to our public information request, but we believe that the public deserves transparency on those types of cases. Another concern is the addition of cases that are likely in reality backlog cases not being counted appropriately as such. As we saw in February, nearly 50 cases were added to the backlog data set in March. From 2022 to 2024, those are not new enforcement cases, rather cases the agency is just now counting as backlogged. The response from the TCEQ is that backlog cases simply meet one of the 2 criteria that Ms. Sedemeyer mentioned. I see that the TCEQ is reporting 2,700 pending enforcement cases, and we are very interested as to how many of those are from prior to 2025, how many we'll see added month by month to the agency's list of what it considers backlogged as the year progresses. And these, in our opinion, represent the agency's true work ahead. And while we learned last month that there is a new staff focus on these backlogged cases, which again, we appreciate and support, the true accomplishment is the resolution or closure of the enforcement case that results in a penalty for the polluter and the signed agreed order that requires compliance by a date certain. Anything other than that is just moving cases on and off a list, and that is not in itself progress. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, I'd like to commend staff for all their efforts on this backlog. Y'all are doing extraordinary work. Really appreciate it, and I know that Katerina and Tanya probably do as well. Absolutely do as well. Not probably, absolutely. OPIC.
Good morning, Chairwoman, Commissioners, General Counsel. For the record, I'm David Timberger, Interim Public Interest Counsel. OPIC has reviewed the report and appreciates staff's effort to move these cases forward and to continue moving them. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for this report. Do you have any questions, comments, anything, Commissioner? No action is required, so let's move on to item 44.
Item 44 is the consideration of a petition for rulemaking filed by Texas Oil and Gas Association to amend 30 Texas Administrative Code Chapter 101 to establish a reportable quantity of 5,000 pounds instead of the default reportable quantity of 100 pounds for heptane and nonane. Texas Oil and Gas Association, as the petitioner, is the moving party and should present the matter, followed by any interested persons, the ED, and finally OPIC. The petitioner may reserve time for rebuttal. OGC recommends limiting the parties to 5 minutes for presentations. That will begin with the petitioner. We have Brian Shaw here.
Good morning. I'm Brian Shaw, and I'm happy to be here today representing the Texas Oil and Gas Association in this matter. Thank you, Chairwoman, Commissioners, OPIC, General Counsel's Office, and staff. We especially thank you for your assistance in getting us through this point. Joining me today is Corey Pomeroy, who is the Vice President and General Counsel for Texas Oil and Gas Association. And I am here today on behalf of the Texoga members who produce approximately 90% of Texas crude oil and natural gas and operate the majority of the state's refineries, pipelines, LNG facilities, and service companies. So thank you again for this opportunity to present this petition for rulemaking, which we believe will enable the TCEQ to continue its efforts to improve regulatory efficiency by applying sound science principles to its policies. Texoga's petition for rulemaking seeks to correct an inequity in the treatment of alkanes, specifically heptanes and nonanes. Despite having comparable health and welfare-based AMCVs, or air monitoring comparison values, and effect screening level, or ESL, reference values, other alkanes such as butanes, pentanes, hexanes, octanes, and decanes have reportable quantities, or RQs, of 5,000 pounds, whereas the heptanes and nonanes that are not currently listed as having as hazardous chemicals under CERCLA or UPCRA, so they have no federal RQs, nor have they been listed with state RQs, and so they're subject to the default RQ of 100 pounds. So they're treated more stringently than other similar compounds. This creates a reporting resource allocation disparity for chemicals with comparable health and welfare-based characteristics. Heptanes and nonanes were left off at the default level back in 2002, I believe, when the last time the Commission considered these compounds, because they're not listed as hazardous under CERCLA or EPCRA, nor are they listed on the state's RQ list. And so they continue that. The state's RQ list is under 30 TAC 101.1. So in the past, they weren't listed because there wasn't the toxicological review to support where those should be, and so TCEQ rightfully put those at the default, or at least arguably put those at the default. However, this was remedied in 2016 when TCEQ published their review of the toxicological and science review for these compounds, and established that these compounds have AMCV and ESL levels that are comparable and sometimes even higher, that is more protective chemicals than some of the other alkanes that have a 5,000 pound RQ. And so therefore we believe that this illustrates that it would be appropriate to bring these alkanes into the same line of RQ as those other similar compounds. And so for these reasons, we would request that you grant this petition for rulemaking, add heptanes and nonanes to the definitions in 30 TAC 101.1 with RQs of 5,000 pounds to make them consistent with similar compounds. And we thank you for your consideration today. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I'd like to reserve any time for questions or follow-up at the end. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Shaw?
No.
Yep. All right. Do we have anyone signed in on this item?
We do, and up front, apologies if I don't get the name correct. Rogelio Mejirio.
Are you in the audience?
Is there anyone here, any interested persons who would like to address? Okay.
All right. We will move on to the ED.
Good morning, Chairwoman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. On behalf of the Executive Director, I am Kendra Houston with the Critical Infrastructure Division of the Office of Compliance and Enforcement. With me is Brittany Wortham-Teakle, Deputy Director of the Critical Infrastructure Division, and Elizabeth Black with the Environmental Law Division. The petition filed by the Texas Oil and Gas Association requests that TCEQ amend 30 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 101, General Air Quality Rules, Section 101.1, 89A I-30, to establish a reportable quantity of 5,000 pounds for heptane, any isomer, and nonane, any isomer, instead of the current default reportable quantity of 100 pounds for compounds not specifically listed in the rule. Staff respectfully recommends granting this petition to initiate rulemaking to add specific reportable quantities for heptane and nonane, including all isomers, in 30 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 101, General Air Quality Rules as appropriate. Thank you, and we're available to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. OPIC?
Good morning again, Chairwoman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Executive Directors, Attorneys, and staff. OPIC has reviewed the petition submitted by the Texas Oil and Gas Association and the Executive Director's recommendation to initiate rulemaking, and we support moving forward with the rulemaking process. The Executive Director has determined, based on TCEQ's development support documents, that heptanes and nonanes exhibit a low order of toxicity comparable to other straight-chain alkanes already assigned a 5,000-pound reportable quantity in Section 101, sub 89AI3. At this early stage of the process, we defer to the Executive Director's technical expertise on this point, though OPIC will review and consider any scientific data emerging from the stakeholder process that may refute the low toxicity conclusions presented by the petitioner. From a public interest perspective, OPIC notes that the proposed change may create cost benefits for the regulated community and efficiencies for agency staff in monitoring compliance and enforcement activities. However, the change would simultaneously necessarily reduce the number of events that are publicly disclosed. For these reasons, we are committed to robust stakeholder engagement throughout the rulemaking so that any potential impacts on community awareness, transparency, public health, and the environment can be fully evaluated. OPIC therefore recommends that the Commission approve initiation of the rulemaking, and we look forward to participating as the process moves forward by evaluating all relevant evidence and determining whether the effort ultimately serves the public interest and bringing that information before the Commission. Thank you. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Eli. Mr. Shaw, you have 1 minute and 54 seconds should you choose to use it.
I'm going to give almost all that back. Thank you so much for your consideration of this, and we'll be happy to engage and help along the rulemaking process, but we thank you for your attention to this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. All right, item 44, reviewing the materials filed by Texoga and the ED, I see that heptanes and nonanes have a low order of toxicity and that contaminants with similar toxicity have a reportable quantity of 5,000 pounds, while these contaminants are subject to TCEQ's default reportable quantity of 100 pounds. Therefore, I'm open to initiating a rulemaking as the ED recommends to further explore and vet any issues presented by Texoga's proposal. I'd like to stress that by asking the ED to initiate rulemaking, we are not proposing or adopting this change today, nor are we committing to Texoga's proposed rule language. We are just embarking on a more thorough review of the proposal. I'll stop here and hear what my fellow commissioners have to say.
Yeah, I think it's good to engage in this. I'm always appreciative when there's opportunities for greater efficiencies in what we do and how we treat the regulated community. I think that was a good explanation of why we're looking at this, that these are chemicals that have similarly low toxicity as other chemicals, and we know that now, and so it's perhaps easier to group them together. So when I was thinking about what I wanted to say about this, I was like, how would I explain this, and how do I translate this from engineer speak or toxicological speak to the way that normal people could understand it? And I think that's the best way. It's just that we're looking at grouping chemicals that are similar in level of toxicities as other ones. So I support moving forward, but want to reiterate that this by no means means that we are going to adopt the rulemaking in the future. Just we're engaging in the stakeholder process.
Thank you. I think you explained it beautifully.
Oh, thank you.
Tanya?
I'm supportive of us moving forward, too. I agree. I think we know more now than we did when we first put them at the default of 100. And in my layman's term, it's treating similar contaminants with similar health effects the same, and that's what this rulemaking, I think, is attempting to do and gain some efficiencies in the process. So I support us opening this up, granting the petition.
I agree with both of y'all, and I look forward to hearing what our stakeholders have to say. So I move that we direct the Executive Director to initiate rulemaking to examine the issues raised in the petition for rulemaking filed by the Texas Oil and Gas Association concerning amendments to 30 Texas Administrative Code, Section 101.89. Do I have a second?
A second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion passes. We will move on to items 45 and 46.
Items 45 through 46 are the consideration of the avoidance and withdrawal from EPA review of the February 9th, 2022 agreed order with Luminant Generation Company, LLC, Martin Lake Steam Electric Station, and the withdrawal from EPA review of the Rusk-Panola Attainment Demonstration SIP revision for the 2010 sulfur dioxide NACs. The Executive Director's staff is here to present these items.
Good morning, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. On behalf of the Executive Director, I am Allison Stokes with the Air Quality Division. With me today is Terry Salem with the Environmental Law Division. For your consideration today is item 45, the Executive Director's request to void an agreed order with Luminant Generation Company, LLC, that was adopted by the Commission on February 9th, 2022, as the control strategy for the Rusk-Panola sulfur dioxide non-attainment area. If voided, this agreed order would be withdrawn from the United States Environmental Protection Agency's review. Also for your consideration today is item 46, the Executive Director's request to withdraw from EPA review the Rusk-Panola Attainment Demonstration State Implementation Plan revision for the 2010 SO2 National Ambient Air Quality Standard. Staff respectfully requests adoption of these SIP revision withdrawals and agreed order and are available to answer any questions.
Excellent presentation, Allison. Thank you. Do we have anyone signed in on this item?
We have folks signed in who are available to answer questions, but no one here that has asked to address the Commission.
Commissioners, any questions? Nope. No. All right, OPIC.
Good morning, Chairwoman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Executive Directors, Attorneys, and staff. For the record, I'm Michael Rakowskis on behalf of OPIC. OPIC has reviewed this proposal and respectfully recommends withdrawal and voidance of this agreed order. This agreed order with Luminant Generation Company was incorporated into the state implementation plan to meet non-attainment area requirements for portions of Rusk and Panola counties under the 2010 sulfur dioxide National Ambient Air Quality Standards by providing an enforceable control strategy for the Martin Lake Steam Electric Station. The agreed order under consideration for voidance and withdrawal from the SIP is no longer needed to meet the sulfur dioxide NAAQS due to the remand of the Rusk-Panola's area's non-attainment designation by the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit, and the subsequent acknowledgement from the EPA that the non-attainment designation was vacated. While the Commission could choose not to void and withdraw the agreed order from EPA consideration for approval, if it is not voided, it remains enforceable by the state for a non-attainment designation, and the SIP requirements that no longer apply. If the submittal is not withdrawn, it would remain pending for EPA consideration for approval, even though the area's non-attainment designation is no longer effective. OPEC notes that there are no expected effects on the public related to this matter, and because the agreed order is no longer required, no public hearing is necessary for the Commission to void the agreed order and withdraw the submittal from EPA considerations. Thank you, and I'm available for any questions.
Well, first, I'd like to thank all the staff that worked on the voidance and withdrawal of this agreed order, as well as the SIP revision withdrawal. As laid out by the ED today and in the backup materials, the agreed order between the Commission and Luminant and the Rusk-Panola Attainment Demonstration SIP revision for the 2010 sulfur dioxide NACs are no longer necessary due to the EPA's final rulemaking withdrawing its findings that Texas failed to submit an attainment demonstration SIP and that the Rusk-Panola area failed to attain the 2010 sulfur dioxide NACs by the applicable attainment date. Therefore, in accordance with the ED's recommendation, I would void the February 9th, 2022 agreed order between the Commission and Luminant and withdraw it and the Rusk-Panola Attainment Demonstration SIP revision for the 2010 sulfur dioxide NACs for EPA review. Commissioners?
I agree. I also just want to in addition to thanking staff, say that I really appreciate the EPA's and this administration's recent efforts for cooperative federalism, which has been very beneficial for Texas.
Well said. Commissioner Miller?
In agreement.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I move that we void and withdraw from EPA consideration the Commission's February 9, 2022 agreed order with Luminant Generation Company, LLC, Martin Lake Steam Electric Station, and withdraw from EPA consideration the Rusk-Manola Attainment Demonstration State Implementation Plan Revision for the 2010 Sulfur Dioxide National Ambient Air Quality Standard.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes.
Item 47 is our public comment session. We do not have anyone signed in to speak at this time, but we can pause and allow anyone in the room to approach the podium if they're, or the lectern, to see if they'd like to speak.
Is there anyone who wishes to address the commission at this time?
That would take us to the end of items posted for our open session and bring us to our items for closed session. The commission will be meeting in closed session in room 4222 of Building F. What time would you like to meet? Okay. We will be meeting at 11 a.m. as permitted by the Open Meetings Act, including Texas Government Code sections 551.071 and 551.074 to take up and consider matters pursuant to items numbered 48 through 51 as posted and noticed.
Thank you. This meeting stands in recess.
The commission met in room 4222, Building F, for closed session from 11 a.m. until 11:15 a.m. on item numbers 48 and 50 as posted in notice pursuant to Texas Government Code, Section 551074. No action was taken. The agenda stands adjourned. The time is 11:27.